Welcome to today's Explainer. Look, we are taking a seriously fascinating and highly unorthodox journey today. Our main goal for this session is to create a retelling that is as absolutely close to the original source material as possible, really trying to capture this incredibly unique, expansive worldview. We're going to unpack a theory from our source that attempts to connect, well, basically everything. We're talking microbiology, oncology, biblical tales, ancient folk magic, and even geographic anomalies, all woven into one massive interconnected web. It's a bold, entirely unconventional hypothesis, and we are going to map out exactly what the author is arguing.
Okay, let's just dive right into this. Here is our roadmap for today. We're going to systematically assemble the author's puzzle by looking at 1. The hidden nature of oncology, 2. Coley's vaccine mechanism, 3. 4 transmission routes, 4. Pork and biblical bans, 5. Healers and epidemic migration, and finally, 6. The call to revive the vaccine.
Section 1. The hidden nature of oncology. So the foundational premise of the author's theory is that modern medical diagnoses are actually masking a deeper singular culprit. According to the source, humanity is plagued by something they term dry internal erysipelas or oncoerysipelas. The author asserts that this is a highly mutated Streptococcus bacteria. But here's the catch. Rather than showing up as your standard infection, this bacteria allegedly hides. The source claims that it essentially negotiates with our immune system, lies dormant for a while, and eventually manifests as what modern doctors diagnose as cancer, lupus, or severe neurological disorders. In the author's view, these aren't separate, isolated diseases at all. They're just different costumes worn by this one mutated bacteria.
Now, a absolutely crucial point here is how this hidden bacteria interacts with other strains. The author introduces a concept of bacterial antagonism. Think of it like a turf war. On one side, you have standard external red erysipelas. It's overt, it's aggressive, it causes massive high fevers. On the other side, you have the mutated internal dry erysipelas, which is weaker, but incredibly insidious, hiding out as tumors. The source argues that because these two are natural antagonists, introducing the aggressive external bacteria into the body will actually cause it to hunt down, attack, and suppress the hidden mutated internal ones.
Section 2. Mechanism of Coley's vaccine. This concept of bacterial antagonism isn't just purely theoretical. The author actually roots it in the real history of Dr. William Coley. Coley was a physician who used erysipelas to treat cancer over a century ago. While Coley's process is often attributed to toxins by modern medicine, our source totally disagrees, outlining a very specific three-step mechanism instead. Step 1. The aggressive vaccine bacteria penetrates and temporarily overpowers the body's natural immunity. Step 2. This triggers a massive spike in body temperature, which the author says is the literal proof the vaccine is working. Step 3. The body responds by producing a massive wave of antibodies to fight off the aggressive strain. And in the crossfire, those antibodies completely destroy the weaker, hidden, cancer-causing mutation. Section 3. 4 transmission routes. So if this hidden bacteria is really responsible for so many complex diseases, you might be wondering how exactly does it get into the body in the first place? Well, the author outlines 4 specific paths. The first is congenital, meaning transmission from mother to fetus. The author vividly describes the bacteria growing these thread-like appendages that spread like a mycelium network through the body, eventually reaching the womb. The second route is physical trauma combined with stress. Basically, an impact or severe injury creates a focal point for the dormant bacteria to suddenly activate. The third is direct blood transfusions. And the fourth, which, as you'll see, becomes a massive pillar of this entire theory, is the consumption of pork, specifically raw, smoked, or cured meats that haven't been fully cooked.
Section 4. Pork and biblical bans. Okay, this brings us to a really fascinating leap from biology straight into theology. The source makes the remarkable assertion that ancient religious dietary restrictions were not just moral tests or arbitrary rules, they were actual literal divine warnings about bacterial transmission. According to the author, way before humanity ever had microscopes, God's prohibition on eating pork was an early microbiological defense mechanism. It was specifically designed to protect humans from animals that frequently harbor this erysipelas bacteria. It's almost like a divine quarantine protocol handed down from above.
The author also connects linguistics to psychiatric symptoms, which is a really interesting angle. The traditional Ukrainian and Russian folk term for erysipelas is bashiha. The author links this directly to the root word bes, which translates to demon. The theory argues that when this dry erysipelas bacteria settles in the head or the nervous system, it causes severe aggression, neurosis, and major psychiatric disorders. In other words, symptoms that ancient people quite literally interpreted as demonic possession.
To further back this up, the source points to a famous story from the Gospel of Mark. You might know it. Jesus exorcises a legion of demons from a man, and the demons actually beg to be sent into a nearby herd of pigs. The author offers a highly unique epidemiological interpretation of this biblical event. They argue that the demons in the story were actually neurological erysipelas. The so-called demons asked to enter the pigs because the infected man originally caught the disease from eating pork in the first place. In the author's eyes, the illness was simply returning to its source, return to sender, basically.
Section 5. Healers and epidemic migration.
We now transition into perhaps the most mystical part of the author's theory, where traditional folk magic intersects with modern epidemiology. For centuries, folk healers have used spoken incantations to cure diseases. The source highlights a very common motif in these spells, which often command the illness to go beyond the dark forests, beyond the high mountains, beyond the blue seas, to the island of Buyan or other distant lands. The author believes this is absolutely not just a poetic metaphor. According to the source, these incantations are literal coordinates.
To prove this, the source asks us to look at real-world geographical anomalies. For instance, why did the remote Faroe Islands historically experience sudden, entirely unexplained sporadic outbreaks of neurological diseases like multiple sclerosis or ALS? Think about it. How does a complex disease just spike out of nowhere in such a geographically isolated population?
To answer this, the source proposes their most unorthodox claim yet, that faith healers in places like Ukraine were literally telepathically banishing this dry erysipelas right across the ocean. By treating hundreds of people locally and magically sending the disease over the blue seas, they inadvertently caused the bacteria to physically accumulate on these distant islands. The end result? Localized, sudden epidemics of MS and ALS among islanders who were the unwitting recipients of this telepathically banished bacteria. Section 6. Call to revive the vaccine. So we've covered hidden microbiology, biblical demons, and telepathic folk healing. Bringing it all together, the author essentially sees human history as a tragic timeline of missed opportunities. In antiquity, humanity was given divine dietary warnings to avoid the bacteria, which, of course, we mostly ignored. 120 years ago, Dr. Coley successfully treated cancer with erysipelas, but the medical establishment completely misunderstood the mechanism and abandoned it. And in the present day, the author believes we are just one logical step away from finally utilizing this knowledge to cure not just cancer, but a massive spectrum of neurological and psychiatric diseases. The source concludes this sweeping theory with a direct appeal to the public. They firmly believe the blueprint for a universal cure is sitting right there, hiding in plain sight. They leave us with a very provocative question. Is anyone out there ready to collaborate, fund, and recreate this anti-erysipelas vaccine to finally rid humanity of its most complex diseases? It's a massive, highly unconventional puzzle, and whether you view it as a potential medical breakthrough or a modern myth, it certainly leaves us with an entirely new lens through which to look at the history of human illness. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and as always, keep questioning the world around you.